So, yeah. So here I have my VS Code environment. This is just pointing to a folder that I have created, which defines or which provides my user-defined rules. In the folder, you see a variety of things here. You will see the schema, which contains a definition that kind of defines how these user-defined rules should be written. We have one for the list and the rules. And then you see I have a variety of XML files for a variety of rules that I could specify in my list. But for this demo, I just really have one rule here, and this is detect jar. I'm actually going to change the help to point to the help for the tech jar instead of the text HTML. So let me change that. So yeah, we have the rules. This is just essentially, this is the item in the folder that defines what all is contained within the user-defined rule. So here we have, I define the main category, which is the main category for my list, and then a secondary category, which is optional, but I provided it just for, I guess, to fill out as much as possible here. And then within the rules, you define each of the rules you want to execute. In this case, I'm just using the detect jars. If I open it up, you see it's a simple definition. It's just going to attempt to identify all of the jars in my application. And then I've defined the severity for the type jars as severe. I provide instance and def cost as well as complexity. Again, just for the sake of filling everything out here. And then when I actually go to execute an analysis scan, depending, and I specify my targets, it will, of course, do the standard binary scanner analysis and load out the necessary rules to detect issues. But in this case, I'm gonna provide some other criteria, other things that the binary scanner look for and flag when I am doing a migration. So here you actually can have, or you can provide a new recipe tag. Actually, in this particular demo, I did not really get enough time to create a VS Code environment, which I could use as a sample to kind of demo providing a user-defined recipe. But I will talk to that a bit when I generate the report and show you what a standard recipe looks like. So when I go into my command line here, so the parameters here are fairly straightforward. I'm going to specify my binary input path, which is just the application I want to scan here. I'm going to perform an analysis report or analysis scan, and then I'm going to specify user rule locations, which is just the location of this directory. This location is important. Um, Once it finds this, it'll find the list, and then the list will kind of give it everything else it needs to know about all the user-defined recipes and what needs to be loaded here. So if I just hit enter and let this run, it should generate a fairly simple report pretty soon here. So here we go. We have my analysis report. You see in the scan options the user rule location that I provided in. So it picked that up and as well as picked up my user defined rule, which is just attempting to find all the jars in the application. Yeah, I've provided help. So if I click on this, I should see the help file for this rule, which I provided, and then the list of results. Yeah, so I did open this folder up in the Mac. So you see it has this auto-generated directory on Macs. And this is something that could be excluded in the rule itself, but the rule is not so smart. So yeah, in this Nash report, you might notice a few new things as compared to what you're used to. We have actually, how many? We have two new columns here in the summary. One column that shows off the number of rules in the report, which have an automated fix, and the number of occurrences or the number of flags on the rules, can be fixed automatically. Below here, you see a new tooltip, which kind of just provide some context as to what this icon means. So it's just simply trying to say that if you see this icon in the report, by rule, it means that that specific rule does have an automated fix. So if I click on the help for getting server name, which is built into the binary scanner, actually, this is one of the top 10 I mentioned earlier. We do have a user-defined rule for it. So if you read through the help, it gives you information about what is being flagged here, the remediation, and then you see that we have a new section here saying that this rule has an automated fix, and that you can copy the custom config to your application build file to enable the automated fix. So if I actually click on this link, it'll take me directly to the new section of the report, which provides the automated config. So this section is just called automated fix configuration, and we provide the config for Maven or for Gradle, which you said you're familiar with Open Rewrite, which just kind of provides the plugin config you need to supply in your Maven XML file. Once it builds, it'll pull the Rewrite Maven plugin, and then it'll pull our plugin as well, which houses our recipes, and then it contains all the recipes that were flagged. So so for each results, each flag you get in your report, if the rule has an automated fix, it's going to provide it here. I mentioned earlier that with user-defined rules, you can actually provide your own recipe. I will kind of just mock up how you would do that in my um, VS Code environment, just so it can be captured in this demo. So the new tag you're looking for is recipes, and that actually will get defined in the rule XML file itself, not the list. So where's the tag jar? Here we go. Text jar, I'm going to define recipes and then equals. And then here I'll just provide the name of my recipe that I want to include. So keep in mind that when you're doing user-defined recipes, whatever recipe you have here will need to be built and provided into your into a Maven environment or a Maven repo that obviously that Maven can find when you run an npm command. So if you are hosting your recipes in the remote Maven repository somewhere, that shouldn't be a problem. But in most cases, I think the recipes will exist in the local Maven repository. So in your VS Code environment, after you've generated recipes, you'll need to build it. It would exist in your local Maven repository. Then when you go and run an analysis report and you have the recipes actually specified here, the binary scanner would pick it up, and then when you get a flag in the report for your rule, you see an icon next to your rule, similar to what you're seeing here, denoting that that rule does have an automated fix. When you go into the config, you will see an item in a config as well for your recipe. And then in here too, you will see an additional comment above your rule, just kind of telling you that you will need to provide the dependency for your user-defined recipe, because we are not going to know where that dependency exists. So we just kind of, I mean, the scan either way will run. So it's not like if you don't provide the config, everything that we have provided in a binary scanner will still execute, right? But the comment is just telling you that in order for your specific recipe to run, you need to just define the dependency for the recipe that you provided. So it's fairly straightforward. You just provide the group ID, artifact ID, and the version for the recipe that you built locally. Then when you go into your development environment, it'll have everything it needs and it'll execute the recipe. So I guess let me go ahead and copy the config I have here. So I guess just a brief review again. This is going to It includes the fix for server name. It is going to identify that issue in the application, and then it's just going to make the remediation automatically. So let me open up my VS Code environment. Okay. And then I might need to make a quick tweak here. So where was that
You
config?
were running more recipes in that case, yeah.
Right, yeah, actually.
Yeah,
In this
yeah.
case, I'm just going to remove everything else there and just leave the server name, which was what was being flagged. So let me find so yeah, this VS Code environment for some context is just this is the environment where that war I ran a scan against was created. So the application was guide rest intro. So this is my VS Code environment, which contains the actual definition for guide rest intro, and it was actually built into my target directory in here. And then what I'm actually looking for right now is I just want to make sure that I have not already executed the fix. So I haven't. That's good. So here is my class, which actually makes use of the server name, the method that the binary scanner identified and flagged. So if I go through and actually maybe it might be in my best interest to use the path provided here because so actually I have this pointed to the
Your local repo.
no, I had it pointed to the remote, but I should point it to my local, just because there are some things that still exist in my local that uh, it- we've made some changes. They have pulled out one of the recipes that we provided into their repo, which I'm not sure if they've actually published yet. So you might see some errors in the command line, which might be fine now that I've explained it. But if you see that error, just be aware that that's what it is. So we during itself, they still need to do a publish on their own.
Mm.
Prevent everything, but our recipe, the one I'm writing and the one I'm trying to run at this time should be fine though. So in my VS Code environment, I'm going to run the command to execute the recipe. So this is just mvn rewrite run. This is going to go through, look at the config I provided my POM XML, and it's going to pick up my recipe actually. So let me run that real quick, and then I'm gonna try to capture the recipes it finds, and I want to keep this open so you guys can
See
see
it changing. Yeah.
that code, yep, change on the fly. So let me go ahead and hit rewrite run. And then you will see, yep, it found the recipe. So that's good. Now it's validating the recipes and it's going to go and do its thing
Now it's
briefly.
going to go through all the files in the build and apply that recipe, which means it's going to look for all the occurrences throughout that whole build of that case of using, oh, there it did it. You could
Yeah.
see it changed it to get property. So it did a detection of that API and it changed the file.